Hello, and welcome to today's discussion. In this video, we're going to delve into a topic that can be quite controversial, the idea that Vice President Kamala Harris exhibits traits and a political program historically associated with communism. The goal on this video isn't to target Kamala Harris personally or to make unfounded accusations, but rather to explore the objective reasons and let the viewer have the pick. Let's find out. Recently, former President and current Republican candidate Donald Trump shared an AI-generated image on Truth Social depicting Kamala Harris in what looks like a communist-style gathering. The joke speaks volumes, but it also begs the question, what do we mean by communism? At its core, communism is an ideology advocating the elimination of private property, with the state controlling the means of production and distribution of goods. It emphasizes wealth redistribution to achieve economic equality, often at the expense of individual freedoms. From these foundational ideas, various forms of communism have emerged, each tailored by local leaders. While Harris doesn't label herself a communist, understanding these traits is crucial as we examine her political positions. What are Kamala Harris' policy positions? Kamala Harris has championed several policies that resonate with principles commonly associated with socialism or, in some cases, even communism. Let's dissect Harris' policies one by one to assess the level of potential Harrism. Economically, she is advocating for the first-ever federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries. Investigating and penalizing companies with excessive profit margins, as well as disclosing junk fees, are on Harris' wish list. These policies are intended to be applied only in emergency situations. In the area of taxes, Harris proposes to increase the child tax credit, ranging from $2,000 to $3,600 a year, depending on the child's age, for children up to 17 years old, and to enhance the income tax credit for workers without dependent children. These credits will be partially financed by raising the corporate tax rate to 28%, an increase of 7%. She also intends to incorporate Trump's idea of eliminating taxes on tips. Regarding housing, Kamala Harris promises to provide up to $25,000 in down payment support and a $10,000 tax credit for first-time home buyers. Additionally, to lower housing costs, landlords would be blocked from using algorithm-driven price-setting tools to set rents, and tax benefits for investors would be removed to prevent them from buying up properties and marking up rents in bulk. In terms of health care, Harris wants to maintain fixed fares for all Americans, focusing on insulin and Medicare Part D drugs. I wonder how many Americans will be willing to or not pay, as she has pledged to cancel medical debt, as well as in education, which makes me question the quality of education. Her stance on abortion rights is clearly stated, as Kamala Harris became the first vice president to visit the self-described sexual health provider, Planned Parenthood. This provider deserves its own separate investigation. Please let me know if you would like to know more about that. Future measures suggest the use of federal funds for abortion, positioning her against the Hyde Amendment. Harris promotes environmentalism to the extreme, suing giant oil companies and holding different opinions regarding the process of fracking. Considering the use of public lands and committing to reducing pollution by 2035 under the Paris Climate Agreement. Let's find out. Regarding foreign policy, it is an opportune time for Kamala Harris to extend support to the logistically underprivileged countries. Judge for yourself. Harris also said, "President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination." She also stated, "I will make clear President Joe Biden and I stand with Ukraine." In partnership with supportive, bipartisan majorities in both houses of the United States Congress, we will work to secure critical weapons and resources that Ukraine so badly needs. And let me be clear, the failure to do so would be a gift to Vladimir Putin. Last but not least, the Harris mandate intends to demilitarize police departments, empowering the defund the police sentiment that has gained traction since the Black Lives Matter movement. This policy attempts to redirect law enforcement resources towards social services. Let's look at some historical parallels. During the 20th century, communist leaders like Lenin, Mao, and Castro also pushed for a more radical redistribution of wealth and state control over key sectors. While Harris's policies are not as extreme, the underlying philosophy greater government control to achieve equality echoes the goals of those historical figures. It's also worth noting that many of these leaders began their careers advocating for messianic social justice and reform before moving toward more authoritarian measures. Harris's advocacy for wealth redistribution through progressive taxation, increased government control over health care, and free college education reflects a belief in significant government intervention to ensure equal access to resources, aligning with the idea of state-managed services. A large part of Harris's economic agenda involves providing voters with more cash to pay for high-priced goods. High-priced goods and expenses will also be regulated by the federal government, such as housing and education. The ban on price gouging during emergencies is currently constitutional, but we still don't have proof of where the limits will be. If we assume that literacy and critical thinking are on the decline due to financial cuts in education, low-income households with less access to economic opportunities are more likely to follow Harris's narrative, and therefore believe, over generations, in current and potential definitions of what would constitute an emergency for the state. The offered natality solutions attends all case scenarios, all controlled by the federal government, with tax credits for low and middle-income households, and financial support for those who follow. Once again, the socialist narrative, which culminates with the budget allocation for social services at the expense of security and order, which, to some extent, may feed the problem it creates. How these policies will be funded, most likely, will be with the goodwill of greatest fortunes, with capital gains taxation going over 50% in 11 states for wealth greater than $100 million. Marginal income taxes rate up to 39.6%, promising a tax rate freeze for income households under $400. With a rise from 21 to 28% of corporate tax, although not the highest 35%. Conclusion: Kamala Harris is laying the groundwork for a system that fosters high dependency among lower economic classes. On one hand, her policies offer numerous economic benefits based on capitalist saving principles, but on the other hand, they lack a focus on wealth creation and social mobility. Pharmaceutical companies could dominate the citizenry, and by extension, the country, through tax levies on corporations and capped expenses for citizens, leading to an excessive reliance on medication. If we were to check the boxes of communism, Harris's approach would align with stagnating social mobility, wealth redistribution, and, to some extent, the intervention in resources, such as housing. The wealthiest individuals may feel a sense of exploitation, although they will also have the means to mitigate it. In my opinion, I would call this half communism because the half of your maximum production from your private property will belong to the state. Think about it. You would not be allowed to have profits until the second half of the economic year. You will work for free during the first 6 months unless you renounce to your social mobility. In conclusion, while Kamala Harris might not be a communist per se, it's important to remain vigilant, as the current global trend seems to be steering toward Marxism and a compressed form of equality across all areas. It's crucial to maintain a critical analysis of world leaders, especially as we navigate the complex and equally unequal landscape of modern politics. Thank you for watching, and I encourage you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Like, subscribe, and comment to support the channel, and see you next time.